Welcome, everybody. I am here with my friend, John Haremza. John, how you doing?
I am doing fantastic.
John and I have known each other. How long have we known each other, John?
Our whole industry, 32 years.
Well, it's been 32 years. We've been around a long time inside this profession. John's another of the top earners inside of this profession, and a good friend. So we're going to be just chatting, shooting the bull about this business, about your career. I think your story is an interesting story. So a lot of people probably don't know it.
True.
And we grew up in a similar part of the United States. I was in Minnesota. Were you?
I grew up Perm, Minnesota. 3.5 hours outside of Minneapolis.
Yeah. So I grew up a couple hours north of Minneapolis, and then found my way into Minneapolis. And I found the network marketing profession in 1988. When was your year?
It was 1988, December of 1988.
Wow.
Yep.
So we literally got involved at the same time. And probably, my story coming in is I had 18 jobs by the time I was 23 years old. I was nobody's prize. I did everything you can do, minimum wage and manual labor and everything else. Didn't finish college, all that stuff. Bottom 20% of my class in high school. What was your deal? Well, before we even get to your deal, and how you found network marketing, tell me about you as a kid. Because we were talking right before that you were a little guy.
Yeah.
Growing up. So we're both bigger now. But as a kid, how would somebody else, if there was a movie of you as a 7-year-old, and we were trying to describe that character in the movie, how would we describe that character?
I think I was inquisitive, right? Matter of fact, I had a nickname, my parents and my sisters, Thorn, because I was always a thorn in their side. I was the youngest of 5 kids and very inquisitive, constantly asking questions. I loved building things, so I'm either taking something apart or putting something back together or
like
doing
Tinker
some
Toys
project.
or erector sets?
All of it. All
Really?
of it, yeah. And building things. Building a doghouse. I remember, and this, maybe I was 10 at this time. My dad, incredibly hard worker, right? But a procrastinator. And so constantly talking about how he wanted to put in this patio door in the kitchen, leading out to the patio. And so, I'm sick of hearing it. He comes home from work one day and I got the window out and the wall cut to the floor.
Really?
I'm 10 years old. So, I guess we got to put a patio door in.
So were you country boy, city boy?
No, country, I guess, hunting and fishing, all the time, small town of about 2,000 people.
Okay.
So definitely not a city boy. I don't think before I got in networking, I had ever traveled further than Minneapolis. And that was maybe once or twice I'd been.
Right.
So
growing up kind of in the country, right? I'm the oldest of 5 kids. You're the youngest of 5 kids. What I found about my youngest brother is he was kind of like, my parents were exhausted by the time they got around to him because, they took all the energy with the other 4.
Yeah.
And so the youngest had a lot of freedom to kind of, do and be. Did you have a lot of freedom growing up?
Yeah, because there was a big gap between, I have 3 older sisters and then my brother and then me. And so, everyone is kind of like 1.5 years apart.
Yep.
And I'm, 4.5 apart.
So you're a surprise baby?
Yeah, I was a surprise. And when I graduated from high school, at the annual, they had to have a picture. They wanted a baby picture. I had to use my brother's. There literally was no pictures of me as a child.
Because they were just like exhausted.
Yeah, they were done.
Yeah. So, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Using that. So were you, growing up, tell me about your parents.
Well, my dad was a janitor at a high school. He was entrepreneurial. He always tried a lot of things, but never took it to that next level. And I think it was, due to hold back or having a big family, not willing to take the risk. He had a delivering, gravel to the local high school when it was being built, and then just went to work there when the project was complete. And so he spent most of his, adult, life as a custodian, working at the high school. And my mom, also a hard worker. She worked in a factory, of dog food factory, was a machine operator.
And your older brothers and sisters? I mean, what I'm trying to get a flavor of is you say your dad was entrepreneurial, but
never really would take it to that. I'm giving you an idea. They started a restaurant, right, called The Hive. The high school team was called the Yellow Jackets.
Okay.
So right across the street from this high school, they started a restaurant called The Hive, and kind of made sense,
Yeah.
And of course, all of us kids would come there. We'd bring our friends there. We ate them out of house and home. They couldn't make any money. But when we're remodeling it, and I love building things and stuff, and so this is the way my dad thought. Rather than buy new nails, we pulled the old nails out and straightened them.
I lived that, man, growing up.
So
Same.
incredibly frugal. Instead of, buying new nails, let's get the project done and let's get this thing, producing some income.
So he was trying, but he never necessarily turned it into a big business or anything.
No, we
kind of scrappy, would you say? Kind of a scrappy family, figure out ways to
figure out.
My dad, my mom and dad were always kind of scrappy, resourceful, but not traditional ever. Only for a short period of time was my dad traditional. Outside of that, he probably bought and sold 1,000 cars in our life. He'd buy some junker and wax it up and turn it around, or have his auto shop buddy fix the twisted axle and sell it. I mean, literally, my dad probably right now he's about to turn 80 this year, but he's probably got 5 cars in his driveway right now. It's just but was it kind of the same?
Well, he wasn't into cars or anything like that. I mean, he was resourceful in building things and things like that, but not really for money. I mean, I think early in their relationship, before they had all the kids, he was trying to make a business work. But
what was rewarded in your family is where I'm trying to get to. Was hard work.
Definitely hard work. Yeah. I mean,
was it outside of the box, or was it follow the rules?
No, follow the rules. I was outside of the box. Okay. I'd always, push the limits. I mean, even as a very young kid, and I don't know, maybe I was like, 5 or 6, I built birdhouses, right? And sold them to the neighbors.
I remember doing that. I remember. I never sold any, but I remember building a couple. Wow, yeah, that's weird.
And then I didn't use waterproof grooves, so the first rain, they all fell apart. But there was one person, wrapped tape around it to hold it together after the rain. But and then I was probably like 12. I got into, my dad bought a garden tiller because he was a big gardener. And so I decided, to run an ad in the paper, and I was tilling these gardens, making, $15 on a garden, $20 on a garden. And of course, I didn't have a driver's license yet. So, I got my brother to bring me around, and then I'd give him a few bucks, out of my, he'd drive me, and then I got it to the point where I was, set the job up. He would do it.
I mean, one was fixing things, making things, building things, whatever. But there's kind of, I believe we're all kind of born with an entrepreneurial capability. Some of us have that beaten out of us. Don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And some of us try it anyway, and some don't. I mean, some people do lemonade stands and some don't. Some people build birdhouses and some don't. Some people see that tiller and go, wait a minute, I can go do this over here, or shovel driveways or whatever, and some don't. You sound like you did some of those things. What caused you to try to monetize those different activities? You want to make some extra money?
I loved money. I love the concept of money because we never had any. I mean, I remember even as a kid borrowing my parents' money, right? Because I was I bought a tractor at one time to, thinking I could really capitalize on the market. There was a guy who was, dominated the market in my little town, plowing, tilling gardens. And so he thought he was going to put me out of business by hiring me as his worker. So I would go do his projects, and then I'd say, hey, I have to leave. I got my own to do. And so
how old were you at this time?
I'm like 13.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Maybe even younger than that, because my first real job, summer job, I was 13. You had to be 14 to do it. And so I, lied about my age, trimming trees, Christmas trees.
Right.
And so that was, but after work, we were done 2:00 in the afternoon. I was making $1.10 an hour. But then I'd go do these gardens. And I always had cash as a kid. My other siblings didn't. My parents didn't.
What was different between you and your siblings?
I guess I think two things. Number one, I'm always thinking. I'm always, laying awake at night thinking about, what I could do. When I got excited about something, I would and when somebody told me I couldn't do it, then that would even motivate me even more to want to do it.
Interesting. It's just like, and the reason why I'm talking about this, for those that are listening or watching, is I always try to figure out and deconstruct the mind of a successful entrepreneur. And there's no doubt you've been wildly successful. Like, how much have you earned in your career? Have you ever added it up?
Well, network marketing commissions wise, about $26 million.
$26 million.
Yeah.
So pretty darn good.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would be excited about that type of a number. One of the attributes I think of an entrepreneur, or somebody who has the capability of being an entrepreneur, is a certain awareness, right? And looking at a situation and going, there's an opportunity there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I don't know about you, but no matter where I go, I'm doing the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
If I go into a concert, right? And I'm counting seats. How many people are here? What was the ticket? Okay, so Beyonce's on stage. How much does she have to pay the promoter? What does the venue cost? How much are the tickets? What are they doing in swag? The band's got to be reasonably cheap. Background singers, they're just happy to be on tour. The manager's getting this and the PR person's getting this. Okay, Beyonce's making about, for this tour, $400,000 a night. So I'll do that. Do you ever do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So even if you go to like a boat rental place and you're like, how many boats and how many slips? And so same kind of thing. I'm always doing the numbers, doing the math and seeing, is there an opportunity there? There might be. If we did that, is there a market? Is there a need? Does somebody filling the need? Should somebody fill the need? Is there any scale? So long before like the Shark Tank thing.
Yeah. That would have been a great idea.
Yeah. I was always just
God.
kind of like looking at stuff,
Yeah.
to just try and see where things made sense.
I do think the entrepreneur sees everything differently.
Do you?
Yeah.
In what way?
Well, just like you say, they see opportunity versus just a concert.
Right.
Right. They see, like you said, they're doing the numbers. They see, I almost think, I kind of feel this way. I do feel this way, kind of a sense of knowing. Right. And it's even like when it comes to network marketing, I can teach you what to do, but I can't teach you what I do.
And so explain that.
I do think people that succeed at an extraordinary level have a sense of knowing. They see things differently. They do things a little bit differently because there's an edge. You look at people that are at the top of their game in anything. There can be other people that are just as sharp, work just as hard, but they don't make the same money. They don't have the same level of success. I think they have a sense of knowing about things that you can't teach. It's an instinct. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. There's a certain instinct. I think that certain entrepreneurs.
Maybe you can't. You can't necessarily teach it, but it can be encouraged.
Oh, absolutely.
And
they may figure it out.
Yes, it can be guided. It can be developed. If you get around people that are very observant, you'll start to be observant. If you get around people that are take advantage of opportunities, you'll start to do the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I mean that instinct of what to say at the right time, or what there's.
Yeah.
But it is, it can be acquired by paying attention and observing.
So have you ever?
I was very observant.
Yeah, right. And we're going to get back to your network marketing journey from the beginning to the end. But before I go there, have you ever been signing somebody up in your business and saying there's no chance?
Yeah,
they literally have no shot.
Yeah. And I have kind of that constant optimistic. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yes,
but you're clueless.
Yeah, they have just no chance. But how many times have you been proven wrong?
I think actually quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I've been probably proven right more than wrong.
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, there's sometimes, and just a, kind of, I'm taking our audience into the emotional mind of a top leader, really, right, for a moment, and saying, sometimes when you look at them, or you have a strong sense that it's going to be difficult for this person from their programming or the way they look at the world, or they're asking the wrong questions, or they're focused on the wrong things, or whatever it happens to be, that you're just like, well, and you know what I did in those circumstances? I said, I have to have them connect me with some of the people that they know as fast as possible, because that's going to be the value. And maybe we can turn that into an income for them.
Yeah, maybe they can learn something along the way.
Yeah, or maybe it just creates a little residual income because the dud introduced me to a stud. So sometimes I know it's like the egg timer. It's set at 15 seconds. I better get some value pretty quick. And there's other times I know, I think I really got one. You ever sat in front of them?
You have that instinct.
And you
really
just went, ooh, this.
Yeah.
So what is if you're to try to deconstruct that, the one that's like, oh, baby, I can run with this person. And, oh, baby, I better go quick because they might not last long. What do you notice?
I think that the bigger the talker, the less they do.
Really? Always?
Not always, but as a rule of thumb, when it's all said and done, there's usually more said than done, right? I mean, there's this guy that comes in, you got me now. I mean, it's I'll show you how this is done. The bigger the talker, they seem to disappear very quickly.
I would agree in certain circumstances, but I would also say that sometimes ego expressed is really good. I'd rather have somebody with a really strong ego than a really weak one, even if they're determined. Mm-hmm. I'd rather deal with the mayhem that is a big ego person, because I can kind of work with that. Because the other side of that equation is some people say yes, tell the world and figure it out. Mm-hmm. Right? Even if they don't know how they're going to do it, they're going to just say a big thing. Mm-hmm. I was a big talker at the beginning. I learned to temper that a little bit, but even still today, big talkers inspire me. Yes, they can disappoint me sometimes, but like Tony Robbins, big talker. Grant Cardone's a big talker. Elon Musk is a big talker.
Well, they're big talkers produce, but a lot of them.
Yeah, some of them don't. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, I buy that. Yeah, some of them just like, in how I onboard a person that's talking big.
Well, it's their actions.
Is say, listen, I'm going to give you some assignments.
Yeah, I love the assignment thing you talk about. I mean, that's
and ratchet that up or down and then have the conversation. Great. And sometimes they're just trying to speak it into existence because they're afraid and they just want to like, damn it, I want to finish for once. You know, I want to. So I'm going to tell.
I mean,
them what
I
you
get
think.
excited about a big talker, but when the results aren't there, you know, it speaks for itself, right? I mean, you know, I'm going to kill this thing, and they don't show up on the call,
Right?
Right? I mean, people used to, you know, say, because we know this, one of our biggest mistakes we make is we spend our time with the wrong people.
Yep.
Right? And so people say, well, how do you know when you have the right person? You know, it's like fishing. I mean, when you're reeling one in and you're wondering if it's a big fish, it's not.
Yep.
I mean, if the rod's pinned to the rail and is taken out line, you know, which in our translation is they're calling you. You're not calling them. Hey, you coming tonight?
Yeah.
No, they're there. You know they're going to be there and they're going to be with people.
Right.
So it's I think that's one of the mistakes people do make is they buy into the story without the action backing it up.
Yeah, I buy that. You know, when you're talking about that, it's like the thing that when I'm building a team, I want a person who's a hurricane. You know?
Yeah, wearing me out.
I want a tornado. Even if it's messy, even if they're screwing up half the time. But I mean, they're just, yeah. I mean, that's exciting.
That's exciting.
You know, to be able to work with that. Even if, and good leaders sometimes come in strange packages, you know? They've got big egos or, you know, they're super sensitive and they, you know, you can offend them really easily or whatever, different types of things. Or sometimes they're hot and cold. So you got to hold on while they're hot. You got to try and heat them up when they're cold, you know, because they get emotional up and down. You as a kid and growing up, you had dyslexia. And you still? Is that, is that totally, a still thing?
Oh, it's definitely a still thing. I still struggle with it big time.
Tell me what dyslexia feels like. When did you know you had it? How did you cope with it? How have you used it in your life?
You know, all of that. You know, when I was I didn't know or register at the time. I just knew I was feeling a little uncomfortable or embarrassed. I mean, all the way back to even kindergarten, when everybody was getting gold stars for being able to, you know, spell their last name, and I couldn't spell mine, and I was upset about, you know, having such a long last name. And but it was probably third grade, because I played sick a lot in the third grade because it was so, you know, frustrating not understanding what was wrong. You know, the teacher's thinking you're just not trying and your parents are frustrated. When I got into high school is when it really became embarrassing, right? Because I think when kids are younger in that third grade, they're a little bit more, you know, forgiving or, you know, they're all trying to find their spot. But once I got into high school, I mean, I completely, because I was a pretty outgoing kid and I just turned into I just tried to be invisible. I just wanted to be that kid in the corner that nobody noticed, because I was put in all these special classes with, you know, other kids that were handicapped. I mean,
did you know? When did you know?
Well, I knew, I think it was not diagnosed until like
was
maybe
it even
7th
acknowledged?
grade.
Was it a thing? I don't remember hearing the term until, you know, the last 20 or 25 years. But prior to that?
Yeah, no, it really wasn't labeled at the time, just, you know, because I think they thought you had, I mean, neither was, you know, ADD or any of that stuff. They just thought you were a problem child.
You're either hyper or you're slow or whatever.
Yeah, and so that's what I was. I was slow. And so I was put in all these special classes, having tests read to me. You know, and I'm in these special classes with other kids that are, you know, having, you know, whether they're Down syndrome or they got autism, and you're looking around, is this who I am?
Right.
Right. And so I, you know, just tried to be invisible and just was, you know, I just, because some people will act out. I went the other route. I just tried to be invisible. And, you know, I got this job right out of high school as a machine operator, maintenance person at a potato chip factory. I think that's where I started to become bigger, gaining weight, eating potato chips every day. And I loved my job. And really thought I probably had the best job I'd ever get. And then I got invited to someone's home to look at a water filter and literally thought they wanted me to build a display or something. I mean, the idea of selling, talking to somebody, I mean, because I wouldn't even say hi to you, and you know, unless you said hi first, and then I was kind of under my breath.
Right.
So
I mean, the reason why I'm fascinated by that is I didn't have dyslexia, but I wasn't a quick student. I'm still not a quick student. I'm a relentless student. I'll surround something until I got it cold. I'll out read or I'll out study or whatever in order to be able to get if there's something that interests me, I will surround it until I have it figured out. But I just find it most of the people that I know that had dyslexia or some sort of learning disability or challenge have said it was their biggest blessing because they either had to concentrate more clearly or they had to focus on different things or they had to develop other aspects of their personality. Early in your experience with this, you shut down, try to not be embarrassed because, and by reducing your visibility, how did you shift from being invisible to getting involved with marketing and being public? Because, I mean, wouldn't that potentially embarrass you again?
It was, absolutely. And
normally people don't have the courage to make that big of a pivot unless there's something dramatic or traumatic. Was there something that caused you to say, you know what, I'm going to do this?
I started to, because it was kind of funny. I was on a call the other day and somebody was talking about how they dreamed about being rich, when they were young. And I thought about that. I don't think I actually dreamed like that. I just wanted to make a living and not be a dependent on society because of the way I was brought up, right? I mean, my parents were very happy that I was able to get a good job. And then
were they embarrassed?
Absolutely, they were.
Of you?
Yeah, because
you could feel that they were embarrassed. Like,
I remember because I told you I built a doghouse.
Yeah,
and I was a real, maybe 12 years old, and I remember overhearing my dad tell his friend how stupid I was.
Oof.
And I remember just crawling into the doghouse and just crying with my black lab. And
because I can see the emotion in your face just describing that.
And so, I guess I think one of the...
How old were you?
I probably was like 12,
Wow.
But I think one of the things that happened as a result of having dyslexia and having all those experiences, I became very empathetic. I can feel uncomfortable. I can feel someone's pain when they're uncomfortable. And so I have this...
relate, right?
Yeah, relate. Yeah. I think that's a good word.
Well, and the empathy too. So, I mean, we're all broken souls in one way or another. You know what I mean? Not necessarily broken, but we're all flawed characters. We all have different things. We all cope different ways. This happens at 12 and you crawl into the doghouse. How did you ever tell him that?
I did. My dad was an alcoholic, right? And, he had reached rock bottom. I was the only one left in the house, right? My rest of my siblings were out of the house and it had gotten real bad and he had ended up in a treatment center. And I did confront him at that time on that. And he didn't remember it.
How old were you at the time?
Well, now I was probably like 19 or 20 years old. And so,
and he didn't remember.
Yeah. My dad was a super guy. I mean, hard worker, did a lot with the kids, took us hunting all the time and all that kind of stuff. But he'd reach that tipping point, with the alcohol, and then he'd get mean and edgy. Yeah. And so every holiday ended with a fight and an incident. So
people respond different ways. I mean, did you feel it more from your dad or your mom?
Definitely from my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mom was more nurturing?
Mom was more nurturing. We had the thing in our house, you eat what's put on the table. And if I didn't like it, I just go to my room,
right. Just give up.
And then she'd feel bad and bring me some food later.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Something I liked.
Yeah.
I was really picky. Now I'll eat anything. But back then I was real picky.
I just find all this stuff fascinating because, I mean, you have this experience and there's Faulkner or Thoreau or somebody has this quote that the past isn't over, it's not even past. It stays part of us.
It does.
You know, these hearing that one little, you know, critical word that you weren't supposed to hear, or overhearing somebody talking trash about you, or somebody making fun of you, or all these different types of things.
Well, in high school, that's the way it was, because, you know, the teachers would make you try to read out loud in class, and you hear you're stumbling and stammering through it, and you just wanted to get out of there.
Yeah.
And, the kids are laughing. And so I hid it. I mean, when I got out of high school, even my wife at the time didn't know I had dyslexia. I was just really, really good at hiding it.
Sure.
And staying out of situations. I was even in network marketing, had reached the level of national marketing director.
Right.
And then it was my second company on stage where I revealed it accidentally. You know, I had these note cards, I was one of 19 people that got to be one of the featured speakers because I reached a certain level. And, I have these recipe cards that nobody could read other than me. And I even had a hard time reading it. And they got shuffled up. And I'm on this stage in front of, there was probably 5,000 people in that room, and my cards got shuffled up, and I just paused, and I'm like in a state of panic. I don't know what came over me. I stopped and I told my dyslexic story, and you could have heard a pin drop in this place. Good for you. And it was a major turning point. It was free.
You were free as soon as you said it.
And not only free, but there were people, I stuttered, I had ADD. I mean, there was grown men bawling in the audience coming up to me. It was a major career change.
Yeah.
Revealing that. And, my business exploded from that moment.
The interesting thing that you say that, because my experience has been that growing up, showing a weakness or a flaw is traumatic, terrible, punished, ridiculed. There's all kinds of social consequences, right? And in the workplace, showing a weakness in a employer situation is also equally dangerous. But in our world, authenticity is actually rewarded. To be able to say, here's my flaws, and here's when everything's screwed up, and I struggle with addiction, or I struggle with dyslexia, or any of those different types of things, or I was abused, as a young girl, or whatever, and all of a sudden everybody says, "Oh my gosh," the people. One, it's courageous to say. Two, people can relate to it. 3, it's empowering for people to go, "Oh my gosh, if he did that, then I can do it too." That's why I'm spending some time talking about the dyslexia, and talking about the challenge, and talking about being judged, and talking about you wanting to be invisible, because of, you're always going to have a piece of that sitting inside your body, right? And in your mind and in your heart. But you found a way to get through it. And you found a way to do it in spite of, to succeed in spite of. One thing you said early on in this conversation is, if somebody told me I couldn't do something.
Yep.
So on one side, you work to be invisible, but on the other side, somebody made the mistake of saying, you can't do that, John. You can't build that. You can't make that happen. It's probably one of the big gifts, because then you go do it. If they didn't say that, maybe you wouldn't have.
Yeah.
So you see, and John and I we were in the same company that had sold water filtration products. You see this water filtration thing, you're working in a warehouse or working in a manufacturing facility. You enjoy the job.
Mm-hmm.
Why in the world, and you're trying to be invisible, you wouldn't interact with people, like you're not an extrovert, you're more introverted like I am. What in the world caused you to say, yeah, I want to be an entrepreneur, build my own business, and start doing that? What?
Well, I mean, so I was invited to this house to look at this water filter.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought they wanted me to build a display. And there was actually a breakdown at the factory that evening that I was supposed to go. So it was like a 10-hour day. And I didn't want to go to this meeting. Right. I just wanted to go home. But I made the commitment.
Who is the person who invited you?
A guy by the name of Dan Surrey, best friend still today.
And what was Dan doing at the time?
Dan was a college student.
Okay.
Yeah, going to NDSU.
And what was the invitation? What did he
Just,
say?
hey, my dad, met some people in Minneapolis, and they're coming to show this water filter thing to us. Why don't you come out and check it out? And so there were 5 of us there that night. I wrote a check. I got so excited. Didn't understand the concept of all I could see. They poured this beer through this little 10p. It came out like water.
Yeah.
This was out in the country. The water was yellow, rotten egg smelling. They cleared it up. I'm like, this is a miracle. Everyone needs one of these. So all I could see was buying a filter and selling a filter. But I wrote a check for $480, 4 filters. I had brought them home at that time to my fiance. And she's like, what did you do? And I'm like, wait till you see what these things do. I hooked it up. I was living in a trailer house. The water in this little town I was living in the city, was not chlorinated. I hooked this water filter up and it did nothing, right? I mean, it tastes the same going in as it did coming out. But I witnessed this out in the country, and there was a neighboring town, Fergus Falls, Minnesota.
Sure.
I knew their water was awful. I went that weekend.
So your awareness was, I know there's a need.
Right. Absolutely.
This thing looks like it meets the need. Even if I have my dyslexia and I'm doing this other stuff, I can flip these things. I can
exactly.
I can share it with some people, and I can make a few.
And I could install them, right?
Plus, I'm handy enough to install them. So that was kind of your pivot. Seeing that there was a potential need in the marketplace and saying, okay, I can flip these things. I can make a few bucks. But so you weren't thinking, I'm going to go build a humongous team.
No, I didn't even. Matter of fact, my brother was the first person I enrolled. And that's only because he was my brother, because I'm like, why do I want to bring people into this and create my own competition? So the way, I went to Fergus Falls, I knocked on doors, didn't know a soul there. December of 1988, I got 3 filters. I had 4 filters, placed 3 of them. I went back a week later. My brother came with me for moral support. I sold one of the 3. Bought it for $120, made $59.
Yep, sold it for $179. Yep.
And I looked at my brother and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to be rich. And he wanted to do it. And so, you're my brother, let's make a pact between us. No one else is to know about this. We're going to get everybody.
Don't tell anybody. Yeah. Don't bring in the competition.
So that was my entry into the networking. And I actually went to an event in Fargo. You remember Mike Nelson?
Sure. Mike was my first mentor.
Yeah. So I came up to him after the meeting, and it was him and my brother, and I had one other friend involved. And we said, we're going to canvas Fargo. We're going to go place a bunch of filters. And he says, you're going to do what? Yeah, we're going to knock on doors. He said, I made $203,000 last year. And if you told me I had to knock on doors to do it, I'd have never done it. He says, who's your upline? I told him. He says, you're actually in my downline. He brought me up into the room afterwards, and he showed me the concept of leverage, of selling the opportunity and recruiting. I left that day with a complete paradigm shift on the way I approached the business. A few months later, I'm full-time.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, how did you approach prospecting?
Well, what's interesting too is everybody that I knew, my friends, family, nobody joined me. Right. Other than my brother, and he tried, it's just, he just didn't really have it. Yeah. Right.
So where'd you find prospects?
I ran newspaper ads. I mean, I opened a little, because that was the model,
Yep.
right? I mean,
So it would be like social media posting today.
exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I ran ads. We did 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 7 o'clock every night. I was doing it out of Fargo, running ads. And we were, pumping people into small group interviews, and, they were running out getting cashier's check for $5,000 to join. And you think about
this company's $5,000 to join in the late 80s.
And it was cash. There was no credit cards.
And $5,000 every month to qualify. Personal volume to qualify to get a check. It was unbelievable. But the company was on fire.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that. If I could join a company back then for $500, I don't know if I'd be here. I mean, I had $5,000. I was making $9 an hour. I mean, I couldn't lose that money. And so, it makes you push through. I couldn't afford to lose it. But you think about how easy people, can get in today and get out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's pros and cons with everything, right? I mean, today's model is very inexpensive to get involved. You get a little bit of product, so it's making it available to more. But like you say, if you could charge $100,000 for somebody to get involved, boy, they'd hang around.
Yeah.
But when you charge the price of going to the movies for a family of 4, that was just the movie. It's coming, it's gone.
Yeah.
So it's both sides. I mean, I do think we come from a good school, but you see some of the success of people today and what they're doing with the low price of entry and really cranking it up. So Michael shared with you leverage and how to change your business. You got excited.
Mm-hmm.
But when do you feel like you said to yourself, this is it. This is what I'm going to do the rest of my life?
Yeah, I mean, it was because when I do lock onto something, when I really get it, I get it. Mm-hmm. Right.
Me too.
I mean, I was laying in bed at night constantly. I mean, just, couldn't sleep at night, up early, up late, dreaming about it at night, thinking about the possibilities. And so I had went full time 6 months after I joined. I had just gotten married, my wife at the time, my in-laws, my parents, my coworker, my boss at the, you got a great job here, throwing your life away. But I saw it.
So all those people were negative.
Everybody was negative.
Even your wife.
Even my wife and my boss, who, I loved my boss and I loved my job and everything else, but they're trying to save me from throwing my life away. And then my coworkers, I remember in the break room, I'm decided to go full time, and I feel like I should go back and thank every one of them, for pissing me off to move forward.
True.
Because they're saying it's never going to work and all that. And I just said, you know what? Maybe you're right. But the worst thing I figure can happen is I'll have to come back and get a job like you've got. And you could hear a pin drop in there because they didn't have a comeback for that.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of people kind of come and go. People joined when you joined. Some of them faded right away. Some of them bounced from company to company, every 6 months. They're finding something else. You're in a pretty rare group of people who've become a pro here, ambassador for the profession. What do you think is your superpower? What's the one thing that separates you from others?
Well, I think one thing is, I am consistent. I mean, when I lock onto something, I just keep doing it.
What does
I'm not
consistency
fancy.
look like?
You think about your
daily method of operation?
Yeah, daily method of operation, your DMO. I have it and I do it. And I do it every day and without fail. And so I'm very consistent. I've also, the personal development, I wouldn't be here today without it. I mean, that completely changed the way I see the world and the way I think. Matter of something popped into my head earlier when we were talking about, dyslexia. And it's Earl Nightingale told a story about two brothers. And he asked both brothers the same question. You know, what do you attribute to the way your outcome? And one of them was an alcoholic and the other one never touched it. And they gave the same answer. You know, what would you expect? My dad was an alcoholic. And so one chose the path. This is, you know, it's kind of like Sergeant Dan, right?
Yeah.
In Forrest Gump, you know, this was my war to die in. And, you know, the other, you know, chose the absolute opposite path. And I think that might have been some motivation. I was not going to fail. I don't fail. When I make a commitment to something, I'm going to do it.
Well, how do you go from wanting to be invisible to I don't fail?
I think it's motivation from other people wanting me to prove them wrong. Right?
Right. So
I mean, I did it quietly.
Yeah.
In a sense, because I've never had a big ego or, you know, that I've been kind of a quiet person, but I've been very consistent.
Yeah.
And focused.
Right. So focus and consistency would be your biggest thing. What if there's one, you could wave a magic wand and you could change something about network marketing? What's one thing that annoys you about network marketing that you'd love to see be different?
Oh man. You know, I love the industry, but there are definitely things, you know, that I don't love.
Yeah. Like what?
You know, it's, I think I could give the same answer. One would be the people I love and one would be the people I hate.
Yeah.
Just from the way that they let you down.
So
you know,
people's the best part and people's the worst part.
People's the best part and people are the worst part. I mean, it's so exciting to see someone thrive and grow and change, because I think that we build people, right? But then you see the other side of someone being nasty and vindictive, and you know, you've given them everything, and then they go and stab you in the back.
Yeah.
And I have kind of a natural personality to trust people and trust their word, trust what they say, trust what they're going to do, and I get sucked into it.
And sometimes, I mean, I think for both of us, if you're in business long enough, somebody's going to have their own issues, and because of that, you're going to end up being taken advantage of, right? But for me, I'm grateful for those experiences because I got stronger. You know, I'm just not. You can't knock me over with a